Boys, how we doing? Another podcast.
Boys,
Lads, welcome back.
Firstly, MG, happy birthday for yesterday.
Oh, thanks, brother. Appreciate it, man.
How was your
Appreciate
day?
it. Yeah, it was awesome, man. Honestly, like such a great birthday. Got so many amazing messages. Just really, really nice messages, man. Like, people reaching out, just telling me how much help I've been and, had some really, really touching messages, man. I felt really spoiled this birthday. And obviously we had a nice catch up Saturday night with everyone, bit of a barbecue, bit of a fire pit. It was nice, man. I feel pretty good, man.
It was an awesome night on Saturday. We had a lot of fun. Um, it was good. And I saw some of the cards that were at your desk this morning and had some really nice words in them too. So well deserved, mate. Well deserved,
Thanks, bro. I
everyone.
really appreciate it.
You're a good
100%.
man, so you deserve all the compliments for sure.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that so much. Thank you.
And Scotty, a little bit of news with you too. Started prep.
Yeah, man. Yeah, started. I was meant to start on Monday, but on Sunday, I was just like, I really can't be bothered eating 4,600 calories, so I'm just going to start today. So, yeah, started prep.
Were you and I chatting about how we find it easier to eat in prep than in the off season, just because the food volume has changed so much? Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I eat the same stuff all the time anyway, but it's kind of nice. Like, I've obviously written my own nutrition plan. If I want to tailor it, I can, but I just like to have exactly what I'm having. It's on the fridge. So Jenny knows, for example, if I need 150 grams of this for the next meal or whatever, rice, it just makes life easier. It's just better and easier. So whereas sometimes if I've been too busy at work in the improvement season and I missed a meal and I've got to come home and eat shitloads of something, it can make it a bit harder. So it's nice to just be in a routine. And to be honest, it's nice to not go to bed every night and feel sick. Like for the first time ever, I was a little bit hungry yesterday, and I can't remember feeling
Yeah.
like that for like 3 years.
Wow. There we go. So people want for you to tell us a little bit about your journey along the way. So how about you just cover quickly, if you want to, just your
Yep.
start point, like where were you in your off season? Where did you finish, and where are you starting prep? Like, what's the first adjustment you made?
For sure. So, firstly, because a lot of people have asked as well this week, oh, how are you going, eating less? And my food it was reasonably high, not as high as what it was in the peak. So, just to give a bit of context, at my heaviest, I was around about 105, where I capped out, and that was when food was mid 5,000s, and
Wow.
I was easily the biggest and the fattest that I'd ever been. Now, I wouldn't say I was like overly fat, but it was definitely I'd never been that heavy and been that big before. But I hung out in that
When was
space.
that? When was that? Like, what month was that?
I can tell you, it was when, well, it would have finished because I started my pre-prep phase in.
Was it around December?
No, I started a bit earlier than that. I think I
Okay.
finished up around about then. So it would have been probably around the peak of the shows, October, November. But I'd
Okay.
been from about July. I'd been in that 102 to my heaviest 105 for the last sort of 6 weeks. And then I decided to run the pre-prep phase leading into Christmas. And also, I was at a point, granted, I've been in the off season for a fair while. My last season was 2020, where I just had enough of eating and I was like, I just want to pull off some fat mass.
Yeah.
And I sucked down from 105 to about, I think my lowest I got down to was about 92, 92 and a
Oh,
half. And that was done in about 8 weeks.
yep.
So it might sound like a lot, but wow, 12 kilos. And that was done taking my food. I think I just sat at about 3,200 or 3,300, which was about a 2,500 deficit almost on what I was having.
Yeah.
But I actually hadn't noticed any change to hunger signaling. And so purely, not that I would recommend doing this, but purely just to see if I could elicit a response. The last week of it, I was like, it's going to fucking drop my food to I think it was like 2,200 just to see if I get hungry. And it was only really at the end of the day that I was a little bit hungry. I think I'd just been eating so much for so long that
Yeah.
it just didn't really, really bother me. Whereas this time around, I noticed a little bit, I'm starting to get a little bit hungry at the end of the day. So anyway, finished the fat loss phase at 92, and then for the last, I guess, 4 months, my weight was hovering between 94 and 95. So food came back up to, I just wrote down here, I got my numbers. So I ended the improvement season at 4,630. So my intakes were 750 carbohydrate, 250 protein, 70 fat. And then my starting intakes are 350 carbohydrate, and I'm linearly dieting, 230 protein and 50 fat. So my intake's
Okay.
now 2730. So it's around about a 2000 kcal drop.
Yeah.
And I've already had a pretty acute response. Granted, I know a lot of it is food volume and muscle glycogen, but that's typically how my body responds. And the plan is to linearly diet over the next 6 to 8 weeks. But obviously I'll auto-regulate it if my
Yeah.
weight does drop a bit too quick, which at the moment it has. If I need to push food up a little bit more, maybe sit at around about 3000, because that's normally where I would start. But full transparency, I'm just so sick and tired of eating. I'm like, I just kind of want to feel a little bit hungry, which
Yeah.
may sound strange to most. But
So, if you were to just with that drop, how long do you think before your weight will plateau out? You reckon that drop will see you out 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks?
oh, honestly, I'm probably going to have to go up a little bit. I think I'll have
Yeah.
to bring food up a little bit because I have within my timeline rates of loss and essentially a bandwidth over a set time that I want to lose. But I know that if I'm exceeding and I know the first 2 weeks, I anticipate to see probably 3.5 kilos
Yeah.
because of muscle glycogen, water, food volume, and obviously just getting a little bit leaner in that second week based on the magnitude of the deficit. But while I have more fat mass on me, I can facilitate that type of deficit. Granted, I think I had a look at my photos and where I started prep last time. I think last time I started about 94. So I started a kilo heavier, but my body composition level is very, very different to where I
Yeah.
started last time. So I'll probably do a post comparing maybe the end of the week just to give some context for those that do care. But honestly, I think that will see me through till probably at least 8 weeks, maybe more.
Okay.
Like I
Wow.
said,
Yeah.
metabolically, my weight just I tend to be able to get lean reasonably quick. And
Yeah.
also just training wise, it sounds weird, training on less food, my training's been even better. I think just not feeling like I have a full stomach, I'm distended. Everything's
Yeah.
been going really good, recovering well. And even just knowing that I'm in prep now, I have an alarm when my alarm goes off, I go straight to sleep versus in the improvement season, I'd be like, Jenny
So,
wants to watch a bit more TV, I'll watch
yeah.
TV. Whereas I'm trying to be very strict in my habits so that it just becomes habitual.
Yeah. It was funny because I think you posted those photos of your start point. Maybe it was like Friday or Saturday.
Yeah,
And
Saturday after training legs. So I hadn't done anything upper body and I was very hot and sweaty. And I'm like, you know what? I'll just do it for my own records and also just to see how I'm looking. And to be honest, at first I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to post that because I don't have enough body pump and I feel like I don't look very big in those photos. And Jenny's like, you've got fucking body dysmorphia. It's just, but then when I had a look at my previous starting point and where I was in 2020, it's very different. So it's cool to see the investment over the last few years. And hopefully when I pull it all off, all the fat mass off, there's something that's better aesthetically than 2020.
well, MG and I had a bit of a giggle because I was with him on Saturday night. He's like, "Have you seen Scotty's photos?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "He's got freaking abs, starting his prep with abs." Like, I
Oh,
don't have
really?
abs at 92 kg, you know?
Yeah, well, see, that's what I mean. So, yeah, I mean, I'm fortunate enough that, like I said, I can get lean reasonably quick. But I think that bout of dieting that I did from
Mm,
whatever it was, October to December, pulling off a good portion,
yeah,
and then to start at 95 and to be leaner than I was when I started last time, I think,
yeah.
yeah, I reckon maybe if I'm 2.5 kilos up, I reckon I'm going to be somewhere in that range. I reckon I'll be on stage around about 84. If I'm on stage peeled at 84, 84 and a half would be awesome. But again, realistically, it's probably going to be more like 84.
What were you last time?
So the lowest weight I had, I think it was 80.5 or something, maybe. Again, that's
Wow.
like fully sucked down.
Yeah,
So
depleted. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So I think the morning of the show, I think I was like 80, 82 something faster, then obviously pushing more carbs in. So
Nice.
I reckon I'll be about two and a half, maybe 3 kilos up this time around. So
Wow. That's
when you average
exciting.
it out, it's really only like a kilo a year, which doesn't sound like a lot, but
No, it's good.
yeah, it's more just I think you can sort of see again when I look at them, there's a little bit more density, a bit more width, and so hopefully in some of those rear shots, all those heavy rack pulls and deadlifts and RDLs will
pay off.
We'll pay off. Yeah, we'll see.
Definitely.
That's awesome. All right, so we got so many questions. I
Been a big
just
week,
can't,
huh?
I just can't put them in any logical order. Like honestly, there's just so many of them. I think next week I'm not even going to put a question box out there because we're just not going to get through them. Like
What a week it was in bodybuilding.
it was a great week last week. It
It was
was
a big week.
it was a big week. It was a good week. It was definitely a good week.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, do you want to get into it?
Let's go, man.
Yeah, bro, let's do it.
All right. Let's
Itching.
start off with a big one. It's a long one, and it's more of an opinion piece. So let's just start with it. A fellow teammate is talking bad behind our coach's back because because he has her on low calories and high steps, and blames him for her lack of progress. But she hasn't taken this prep seriously until recently. Now that her show is close, she's been putting her physical and emotional energy into other things that are affecting her progress and not optimizing her non-negotiables. And they put that in like quotation marks because that's the word we always use. My coach is amazing and very successful. Should I tell her she's the reason for her lack of progress? It's interesting. So talking bad behind a coach's back because they've got you on low calories and high steps, I think that person doesn't realize that that's pretty damn common, right? That sometimes people need to go on low calories and high steps. It's just what it takes sometimes.
Yeah.
And as we know, as coaches, everyone is always comparing themselves to the genetic elite that are the ones that promote how elite they are online all the time and talk about how low their steps are and how high their calories are. So people think that that's how everyone else should be, where honestly the majority are on high steps and low calories, right? It's just the way it is. Sometimes you need to get to that region. And as long as, and apparently this coach is a successful coach, so I'm pretty sure they've probably gotten them there in a strategic way, right? They've probably done it in a smart way, and it's just, as happened, they had to go on low calories and high steps. It's what happens. I went on low calories and high steps. My coach was amazing. So I think to talk bad about a coach just because they've got you on low calories and high steps is really not good enough. If they said something else like, oh, the coach is not communicating or is not open to answering questions, I think if it was something like that, I'd kind of understand. But if you're blaming your lack of progress just because my coach has got me on low calories and high steps, it's all his fault.
You got to take some ownership.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just to address the bit about, when this person actually says it's not the coach's fault, it sounds like it's her fault because she hasn't taken it seriously only until now. And she's been putting all her physical and emotional energy into other things that are affecting her progress and not allowing to execute her non-negotiables. So I think and the fact that she said this coach is successful, I think that's going to be what's going to make all the difference is if this coach has a team of successful athletes and they do they're all very successful, and it's just one person in the team that's not, or doesn't look the best, or doesn't have the most progress.
The outlier.
It already shows, right? It's probably not the reflection of the coach. It's probably the reflection of that athlete, right?
Mm.
And actually, it's funny, Scotty, because we spoke about this the other day, right? So
I'm literally running that in my head, and we obviously spoke very openly about, how I feel about that.
To give the benefit of the doubt, if this person that is lacking in progress and the coach has never, ever coached a person like that before, fair enough, right? But if he has other people in his team that are just like you, that need to diet down really hard, get on low calories and high steps, and he's successful with those people that are just like you, and you're the only one that's not making progress, then it's maybe not the coach's tactics. It's probably have to do with the athlete. And as this person calls out, they're not taking it seriously, not doing things to optimize their non-negotiables. And I think people will see that. So, this person can talk bad about their coach, but I think people are smart enough to realize, well, you're the only person that's not making progress in that person's team. And also they can probably tell by that person's mentality. Maybe they're always negative talking. Maybe they've never got nothing nice to say about anyone, let alone their coach. People will start to realize someone's personality type. So it's funny, Scotty, you want to talk, because we didn't talk about talking behind coaches' back, but we spoke about the other day about um, people not giving it their all and blaming it on everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And also potentially not starting their preparation from a position that they perhaps could, because they perhaps didn't give the same attention and obviously adhere to those non-negotiables. Like, this is what we speak about all the time in the improvement season. The transition from off-season to prep, if you're a true professional, there's no real transition. It's like I'm doing exactly what I was doing, but now I'm just eating less of the same foods that I was already eating. And that's literally how it goes. But if you're not doing those things and you're not ticking the boxes, then sometimes, not sometimes, all the time, you need to take some ownership. The onus falls on the athlete. The coach's job is to draw up a game plan, and it's your job as the athlete to execute. So if you're executing and you're not getting a result, then there needs to be open dialogue so that you and your coach can identify, why are we not getting a result? But then it comes down to the level of adherence. Are you doing everything that you're saying that you're doing? Because again, it's all well and good if you've got, say, Joe Bloggs over here and he's got 12 athletes and 11 of them are in phenomenal condition and they're doing everything they ask. And then you've got whoever this person is on the other side here, and they do what your coach asks most of the time. And most of the time they get their steps. And sometimes, let's say that they've got a big leg session in the morning, but their friend's having a birthday party, and so they're going to go out late or potentially go clubbing, or they're going to go to the movies at 10 o'clock and stay out late and affect their sleep, their performance shit the next day. All of those things, they carry weight behind them. So everyone knows, I use the analogy that you're either making a deposit or you're making a withdrawal. So is what you're doing, is it depositing to your physique account, or are you withdrawing from it? So if I'm staying out late, then that's a withdrawal. If I'm going to bed early, I'm hydrating well, I have a good sleep, then that's a deposit. So at the end of the day, your week should be full of more deposits than withdrawals, but it sounds like perhaps this individual isn't and is looking to put blame on someone, on someone else. But at the end of the day, this sport, one of the reasons I love it, it's not like a team sport where you could play footy and you do everything right and then someone misses a goal and your team loses. If you lose, essentially the onus is on you. It's not on your coach's fault. Yes, they play a contributing role, but it's your job to get in the trenches and get it done. They can write the best game plan in the world. Some of the best coaches can have athletes, and I've seen it before, some of the top coaches, and I've had it as well, where you can have someone, for whatever reason, the result doesn't come to fruition. And as a coach, sometimes you actually just think, was that me? And it's like, no, it wasn't, because you know what you've given in, and you know that if this coach sounds like there's someone who gives everything to their athletes, and so perhaps it's just that the athlete hasn't done their part. And I think if that was my teammate, again, I'm very transparent, I would just call a spade and just say, it's not on them, it's on you. You didn't fucking do the work. Look at everyone else. They've done the work and they got a result. Don't blame this person. Don't blame her or him or whoever it was, because you didn't do what was asked and you didn't make enough deposits.
Yeah. And I could almost guarantee that coach has all the check-in data to show they haven't done the work, if they were honest. All the times they didn't get all their steps in, all the times they didn't get their sleep in, all the times they missed the training session, all the times that they didn't progress in their training, all the times that they overate. I bet you they have all that data. Or the client just is outright lying to them completely all the time and saying, yeah, everything on point, but they're telling this team member that they're not on point, but they're going to brand their
At the end of the day, like as a coach, you can look at a spreadsheet and you can tell straight away if someone's talking shit, because it's like, dude, you did the numbers in your head. From a physiological perspective, you know exactly, like, the rate of loss is planned. So I know that this is where our maintenance calories are. Granted, maintenance is a moving target in the dieting condition and even outside of that. But if you have allowed for X amount rate of loss per week, we know how much, 1 kilogram of mixed human tissue weighs. The deficit for the week supports this amount rate of loss. If you're substituting in different foods, or you're just not adherent, and perhaps maybe were you not adherent in the improvement season, that you were eating X, Y, and Z when really you were having all this other stuff. So, it's a slippery slope. And so, yeah, I think perhaps this individual needs to just grow up and and just take some onus and some responsibility for themselves. Again, I don't know who this person is. I don't know who this coach is. But again, assuming that obviously it's not if it is a credible coach and someone who's very good, then I would dare say if they have a team and their athletes are all doing well and that one of their athletes has come in to pitch, to pinch hit for them, then I dare say that there's a very, very, very good chance that it's the individual. And did you say it's a girl or it's a guy?
There's the he's and the she, so it sounds like it's a male coach and a female client.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And girls, again, you would know you've got a team of girl athletes. They're typically very close, but again, I think in this day and age, you need to be transparent. Loyalty is a big thing for me. If I'm asking for it for you, you're getting it from me. And so in terms of if you've got someone if Michael Galanti is my coach and someone's saying that he's not doing this and he's not doing that, and I know that he gives everything to me and he gives everything to his clients, then I'm going to say, I'm going to put you back in your place because you're talking shit.
Yeah.
And you could be tarnishing someone's reputation when in reality, you just need to grow up and get your shit together because you can move to the next coach and then maybe they might not be as accommodating as this person is and they'll just tell you, you know what? And I've had that with people before. We're not a good fit. You're better off go and find someone else. Like if you're not going to do what's asked of you, then why are you paying me money?
Yeah, totally.
Because for good coaches, it's not about money. It's about working with someone. It's a two-way street. Like there needs to be open dialogue. You're in it together. And all good coaches are invested in their athletes' results. So, yeah, I think it says more about the individual than it does about the coach. And for the person who's asking, if it was me, I would just call this person and just say, what are you talking about? And let them know and put them in their place. If it was Trimboli, he would probably have them over for a cup of tea and talk it through.
Yeah, if it was me, yeah, I think you know how I operate in the way of like, I would try to be accommodating as much as possible, but there'd be a list in my head, and then there'd be a black mark against that person. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything to say on that, MG?
Yeah, I think it's a weak way to deal with something. If you're not doing the work, and it's easy to blame someone else, but just remember all these things end up coming back to bite you in the ass. So I reckon that this teammate should call it out. And I learned this saying very, very early on, and it's so true. It's like, if it walks like a duck and it sounds like a duck, it's probably a duck, right? So this person's a duck. This person is seriously a duck. Put that on the Prep Coach podcast t-shirt. This person's a duck. It's like, using your own weaknesses and your unwillingness to do the work to put it on somebody else is just not a good way of dealing with it. My question would be this: why hasn't that person had a conversation with the coach? I'll tell you exactly why. Because there's no conversation to be had. Because the coach's response would be, "But you haven't been doing this, this, and that." That's why you're not talking to the coach about it. So you're talking to your teammates about it. So anyway, I just feel like, it's not a great way to deal with it. And hopefully this person sees the light and can honestly just look themselves in the mirror and say, you know what, actually, I haven't been putting in the work and that's why I am where I am. But like, you just as a comparison, you're talking about low calories and low steps. Comparison to what? To who? Whose metabolism, whose genetics do you have an exact comparison for? No one. So just not a good...
If you use the example, and I'm sure Matty won't mind, he's actually been transparent with it. He's a good example of someone who is a big dude. He's an IFBB, classic physique pro, 90 kilos, peeled on stage, ton of muscle. And I think he was even saying at the back end of his prep to push the conditioning, he was eating like 1,200 calories, 2 hours of cardio a day. Yeah, and I guarantee you this person isn't training even fucking half as hard as what he would be training.
No way. We've seen him train
everything. And he's an enhanced male. He's also got access to pharmacology. So, and if you're a female and you're eating 1,100 or 1,000, even if it's 900, is it healthy? No, but it's not designed to be healthy, and it's not long-term, and it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
You're spending this period of time in a low energy availability state for a reason. Are your carbs low? Guess what? If you want to induce lipolysis, you need to have low carbohydrate substrate availability. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to get leaner. Yeah. If you're not walking and you're not expending energy, how the fuck are you going to induce a deficit?
Yeah. Yeah. And not only that, it's also, I think what you said, it's honest about your output, right?
Yeah. What are you doing?
So being honest with your input, what you're putting in your mouth, be honest about your output. Like if you've got a step count, I'd be like, make them the best fucking steps you've ever done in your life every single fucking day. Like I would literally go around the river in my house and try to beat my time every single time throughout my whole prep. When my energy is down and my food is down every single time, every single week, I'm still trying to beat my time,
Yeah.
right? I wouldn't, when I trained, and I told you, Scott, it's like I was still hitting PBs for ages during my prep because
Of
I'd be
course.
trying so hard because I know that's output, right? That's output. That's that's deposits, right? Right?
And if your output isn't where it needs to be, you have to remember when you are in a low energy availability state, human beings are designed to adapt to the environment that they're exposed to. So metabolic adaptation, that's 101. You're adapting to the environment you're exposed to based on your energy intake and your environmental physical activity surrounding. So what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. So if you're inactive and you go for whatever it is, an 8,000 walk on the treadmill versus go for a walk outside an area. Are there hills? Are you walking on different inclines? And also the work ethic that you employ in your training session. Like, are you just going through them? I've got 2 sets of 10 to 12. Are you just ticking that off? Or
Yeah.
is every single rep like testing you? Because that also plays a role as well. So at the end of the day, if you're eating less and you're not exposing yourself to a greater stimulus in order to elicit that expenditure, then your output is going to be reduced. The amount of calories that you used to burn doing 12,000 steps, guess what? You don't burn the same amount of energy as you used to
Mm-hmm.
because your body is trying to conserve energy.
That's right.
So you have to give it a reason to exceed that gap. So if you're just doing the very bare minimum, then obviously that's what you're going to get. But yeah, I think this person just needs to grow up.
Yeah.
Duck.
Quack, quack.
Quack. All right, let's change the pace a little bit. There isn't another opinion one, but I'm not going to go there. We're going to go to something a little bit different. This is about peak week because we've got some people that are in peak week. So, do you recommend caffeine in peak week and on show day? My coach has discussed / advised me to pull it out the next week on the carb up days and show day to prevent dehydration. Would you recommend this? Thanks, guys. Smiley face. So the coach is telling them to take out caffeine during the carb up process and show day to prevent dehydration.
Yeah. I'll start by saying this. Like, I certainly wouldn't be pulling out like caffeine specifically for any reason. Remembering in peak week, most of us are pushing hydration anyway, right? So let's say that you're normally somebody who's drinking, 2.5 liters a day. As a coach, we might say, hey, we're just going to add 500 mils a day just to ensure adequate hydration. Doesn't need to be anything. I actually heard of someone last week who told me in a consult that their coach made them drink 10 liters on one day and 6 liters on another. That's another conversation. But if you're just adequately hydrated, maybe drinking a little bit above what you'd normally drink, so let's say an extra 500 mils per day, your 1 to 2 coffees or your pre-workout is probably not going to induce dehydration. So I don't think that it's needed. And actually on show day, and we've spoken about this in recent episodes, right? We use caffeine sometimes as a bit of a tool to help with peristalsis and help with the bowel movement. So I don't think it's necessary to pull out caffeine. If you're someone who's caffeine sensitive, maybe having it on show day is not a good thing because it may, increase anxiety and potentially make you feel a little bit more nervous. But other than that, can't see any reason, unless you're excessively drinking insane amounts of caffeine and you're not drinking enough water during peak week, that it's going to have any effect.
I like the fact this coach is not trying to dehydrate their athlete.
Yeah, I know. At least they're hydrated.
At least he's trying to hydrate them, not dehydrate them. Taking out the caffeine is probably not what's going to cause dehydration.
Yeah.
But Scotty, talk about caffeine and carb ups, because I know there's some kind of correlation there.
There is, and there's some good research to support, especially in endurance-based sports, and typically working with professional athletes. Like sometimes I've had footballers that I've worked with, if they have double-day sessions where we'll actually use it to help speed up partitioning of carbohydrate. So there's some good research to support that pairing caffeine with carbohydrate enhances carbohydrate absorption. So taking it on, being able to partition it. Now, if you're talking about peak week, when typically we are pushing in more carbohydrate towards the back end, it's definitely going to be advantageous. I use it in that front. And again, when people think caffeine, they just think coffee for a lot of the time, rather than a pre-workout. Or a lot of people don't realize that you can just get caffeine tablets, so caffeine anhydrous. In terms of
No dose?
sorry,
No dose?
oh no, those normally just straight up caffeine tabs. But that's obviously it's a dehydrated form of caffeine, and it's different in terms of how it's absorbed through coffee in that sense. So typically, if you're wanting a better result, again, all the literature that I've read on that is that it's better to have caffeine and anhydrous. So basically, that just means not with water, and having it as a powder or as a tablet. In terms of partitioning that carbohydrate as opposed to just having coffee with it. And there's also a protocol that I have used in the past as well, where if you've got someone and you're trying to push conditioning to the very last minute and you've got a short turnaround and you need to feed a greater amount of carbohydrate in a shorter window, that employing the use of caffeine, so I think it's 4 milligrams of caffeine per kilo of body weight, over twice over a 4-hour period, with a feeding of 1 gram of carbohydrate per kilo of body weight every hour on the hour, in terms of being able to partition that carbohydrate quickly. So let's say if I'm 100 kilos, that would be like me having 400 megs of caffeine, which, yes, it's a lot, but again, you're doing it for a purpose to help partition that carbohydrate. So you're talking about 400 grams of carbs being absorbed and stored in terms of glycogen within that period of time. Whereas previous to that, we know that it's around about 1.1 grams per kilo of body weight in terms of how much, on average, we're going to be able to partition per hour. So there's some guidelines. I normally go off.
Pretty big difference.
Sorry? Yeah.
Pretty big difference, yeah. Like as in, like, if you had someone who had to diet up really hard to the show, managed to get there on the Thursday or the Friday for a Saturday show, so got lean enough, used those last 4 days to their advantage, and then had to do a quick sort of back-end carb up, that's a good piece of information for people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you think about, say you're 400 grams of carbs is a shitload of carbohydrate. So again, let's say that you've got the average 80 kilo male or whatever, that's 320 grams of carbs. You think about that in the form of a carbohydrate feeding, that's a lot of carbohydrate. I wouldn't want to ingest that over, even on a 4-hour period, I wouldn't want to do that. But again, with this individual, I think he was like 72 or 73. So it was around about 300 grams of carbs that we pushed in, and it was awesome. There was no distension. He absorbed it really well. He wasn't overly jittery in terms of taking it. And again, we didn't give it to him via coffee. It was just through caffeine tablets. He was on it, I think it was like 11 o'clock. So we started this process from about 4 a.m. But again, if you're that close to the edge, and it's a tool that you have in your toolbox to be able to employ. But otherwise, when I'm prescribing my carb ups, I'll typically encourage having that carbohydrate meal, again, not exceeding that 1.2 grams per hour, and ensuring that there's some caffeine with it, because again, there's a lot of good literature to support that it does help with obviously being able to partition it. And exactly the same with a small amount of protein sometimes as well, has been shown to be pretty beneficial as well. And so for exact numbers, that's 0.3 grams per kilo of body weight.
Yeah. So it sounds like this
you get that insulin response as well. So carbs and protein, you get that synergistic effect, and very similar with caffeine, and actually similar with creatine as well.
Yeah. So it sounds like this coach has maybe got it a little bit backwards. Like they're pulling it out because they think it's going to cause dehydration, when potentially leaving it in there might be advantageous for processing of glycogen.
There's actually not a lot, not that I'm aware of, a lot of literature around dehydration regarding physical performance in terms of ingesting caffeine, provided that the athlete's euhydrated. So if your athlete's euhydrated, so just to be clear, we're talking about they're not dehydrated, they're not hyperhydrated, so they're just at baseline, so homeostatic levels. If they're euhydrated, then why would it matter if you're putting in some caffeine during that window of time? And again, you're taking it via a tablet. And again, you have all of that literature to support that. I don't think it would be a problem. And again, I wouldn't want to start pulling things in and out if you don't have to. Again, if you could dose your caffeine earlier in the day, because it does have that half-life of 4 to 6 hours, that's going to be smarter, because you got to weigh up, is absorbing and partitioning carbohydrate more rapidly going to be better than potentially fucking up my sleep, then
Yeah.
obviously they're conversations that you need to have. So if that was me, I would probably choose to have, and doesn't mean you have to go to that exact threshold of 4 megs per kilo of body weight. It's just that that's the ceiling where in these particular studies they found the best results for it. So
The only time I'd actually pull caffeine or reduce caffeine or even pre-workouts and those kind of stimulants prior to show is maybe a day or two before, just to calm that person down, just to relax them so they're not so jittery and on edge, and just say, it's showtime. You should be chilled. You should be relaxed. Cortisol's down. Let's just chill you out. Get some good rest. Get some good sleep. Take in some good amount of food, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's another thing to that as well. If you peaked your athlete adequately, we've spoken about, hopefully you don't have to feed a lot on show day. So again, it's a tool. You might do it the day before, but on the show, again, we typically might have some caffeine first thing in the morning to wake someone up, but then otherwise you want to keep them in a very parasympathetic state, and then you don't want to start to tap in to those sympathetic drivers until you're like maybe 45 minutes out from stage. Everyone laughs at how we spoke about the old Christmas carols on the way to the venue, but staying nice and composed up until it's go time, and then you might start to, as you start to pump up, ramp up your music, start to get a bit more hyped, because then you want that adrenaline release, and obviously you want to get pumped up. But there's a time to be amped and there's a time to be calm.
Relaxed. We had a couple of people message the page about they're going to be bringing their mattress to the show day. So this is going to be a trend. This is going to be a trend.
I did say that.
Okay, next one. That was a good one, boys. So I actually got this from a competitor. I'm not going to say who it is, but they recently competed, did very, very well. So congratulations to this competitor. They'll know who they are when I read this question out. But they said tips on how to handle extreme hunger post-show and heading straight back into a prep. So obviously they've come off a very, very successful show, and they've still got to continue to keep prepping for their next show, but they're really hungry post-show.
So are they dieting? As in they're
doing another show, yeah.
They're doing another show coming up.
Okay.
But they're hungry post the show they just did. So some tips.
Hungry is in to do better, or hungry is in like I want
food.
No, food hungry.
Just getting the context. Okay.
Maybe both. Maybe they're hungry to do better. I don't know. But yeah, tips on helping them, with extreme hunger and heading back into prep. Do you want to go with that, MG? You want to start, Dylan?
Yeah, so I'm guessing most of that hunger was probably there before the last show as well, right? It probably feels increased and elevated now because you've done a show, and it's like you've had some success. You did really well. Congratulations on that too. So it's like, okay, I've already had success. I'm doing another one, and now I feel like the hunger's really, really coming. So it's probably a little bit elevated just from that alone, but it's probably been there the whole time. So using techniques and strategies that you probably used towards the end of last prep, some distraction methodologies, something like, listening to things, podcasts. And then, there's some potentially, I'm not sure if this person's on a meal plan or tracks, but potentially there's some substitutions to their eating that they can make where they could add in some more voluminous type foods that may help them feel a little bit fuller for a little bit longer. But again, not sure what type of nutrition system they're on at the moment. But remember what we said, I think it was only 1 week or even 2 weeks ago in the podcast. It's like, if you're there and you're fighting with hunger levels and you're getting through them, you're probably improving, you're probably in a deficit, and you're probably chewing through some fat tissue. So always make a positive alignment to what you're feeling rather than looking at it as a negative. It's like, all right, if I'm hungry, it's probably because I'm getting leaner and I need to be leaner to do better than I did last show. So I am improving. But definitely I'd probably sit with your coach maybe and have a look at your current plan. If you are macro tracking, if there's some substitutions you could make that could help you feel fuller for longer. And then the other thing would be, looking at some type of distraction techniques for the times that you do get most hungry, where it's like, okay, I'm always hungry after dinner. Okay, I'm going to program in, I'm going to eat my dinner, and then 30 minutes later, I know that I get really, really hungry. So I'm going to make sure that I leave 2,000 of my steps for that hour there, where I can get up, get off the couch, go outside, distract myself for an hour, come home, and hopefully those urges have gone.
Yeah. I think, you're exactly right. Like, continue to do the things that you did in your prep to help mitigate hunger. Making sure you get enough sleep, making sure your stress is down, making sure you volumize your food, making sure that your food is not overly sweet, tasty, palatable, and all those kind of things. Also, one of the reasons why you might be having it too, and it's actually completely normal, is that dopamine spike that you got by winning a show, doing really well at a show, and then it crashing post-show. If any of you guys have ever listened to Huberman Lab podcast, he talks about it. There's one directly just about dopamine, and he basically explains the same thing. You finish an event, you're very successful, whatever it may be, you have this massive spike, you have a big crash and a dip, and then you feel unmotivated and just and you have no willpower post that point. So it does level itself out. It may just take time. Just know that it's actually completely normal. It's pretty normal. One thing too is, and we do this with our clients, is if we know someone has a show coming up, we don't really give them that post-show meal or whatever, that celebration meal, because we know it can have this effect where they'll go out and have a meal that's overly palatable, overly tasty, overly high in calories, and the body loves it way too much, and the mind loves it way too much, and then you can't stop your cravings. So if this person's going to be doing another couple of shows, keep that in mind too. Is just after you come off stage, it should be straight back into game plan. Anything on that, Scotty?
No, just lean into it. And again, from a physiological perspective, you got to remember if you're trying to get sharper, the less fat mass you have, the more of an elevation you're going to see in that hunger signaling. So that's inevitable. And it doesn't matter how much you're eating, it will still be there. So I just recommend lean into it. That's what I normally do. It's good. Embrace it. If you've had some success, it makes it even better because, again, I would look at your trophy or look at your medal, print something off, and then have that where you're spending a lot of time so that you're there, you can see it. And when you are thinking of that, if you have something that you can look at, you can associate what you're doing. That's the outcome that obviously that correlates with what I'm doing right now. The sacrifice that I'm having, that's my why, going to that next level. Yeah. There's nothing that you can do about it. Thinking about it is only adding fuel to the fire in the sense it's just making it worse. So accept it, know that it's there, but just move on. And just, I think the more active that you can be, typically I find that people that sit around, and it sucks if you're at a desk all day, if you're sitting around thinking about your next meal, that would be really shit, versus if you can be active and you can be going, like I'll clean the house, I'll go and do some gardening, whatever it is, put a podcast in, anything to take your mind off of it, and then before you know it, you're engrossed in that task and know what you were thinking about. And after a while, you'll just learn to live in that state and you'll just get used to it.
Yeah, definitely. We had another question very similar, but it was tips on how to get through the last grueling weeks of prep. And I think you just kind of covered that too, Scotty, with that.
Yeah, they're the best because you can see light at the end of the tunnel. When you're at your hardest, suckiest point, like at some point, if you're getting into truly elite conditioning, I refer to it as the suck, it's going to come. And when it does, it's there to stay. And so when you hit that point, knowing that you're at that point, for me, it's such a good feeling because you know I'm really, really, really close and it's going to get better. And it's also knowing that if I'm feeling like this, everyone else that's of the same sort of caliber, perhaps as what I am, is going to be feeling the same way.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to go to another level. You know, other people might cave. I'm going to have a little bit more of that, or I'm going to swap out my salad for some more jelly or whatever. I'm going to choose foods at a higher volume instead of just saying, no, I'm just going to face it head on and I'm going to get it done. And then if I do that, the goods will be there when I need them to be and the result will take care of itself.
Yeah. I literally had that conversation yesterday with someone and saying, like, this is the fun part. Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
This is where it all matters. This is where it all matters. Not only that it could separate you from someone that won't push through, right? But also these are the days you reflect on and you be proud of. You're like, wow, I pushed through that. I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I was dragging my ass for like all those weeks. And this is the stuff that should make you really, really proud. The fact that you push through these tough times. Yeah,
absolutely.
Anything on that, MG?
No, it's the best. Like you said, it's the best time because you can almost wake up and see daily changes.
Yeah,
so it's like every time you're in the suck, it's like, yeah, tomorrow's going to be good. Get to see something new. That's the attitude I use. It's like if I'm sucking today, tomorrow's going to be good. I'm going to reap something from it tomorrow.
Yeah. All right. What would you take as a pump up supplement on comp day? Do you want to cover that, MG?
Yeah, I think we've covered this before. So
Yep.
I think the three of us are the same, so it should cover everyone. But rather than use a pre-made pump up formula, I think what we've been opting to do for a while is just make our own sort of concoction backstage, which will typically be an injected acute dose of sodium, citrulline malate, which is obviously great for vasodilation and helps with a bit of a backstage pump. And then depending on people's tolerance as well, but beta-alanine as well, which is, for those that don't know, the one that in your pre-workout formula that gives you tingles. I love having this conversation with athletes all the time when I'm like, I'm taking this. Should I be taking it? And it's like, oh, do you know what any of these are doing? Like, absolutely no clue what any of these do.
Yeah.
Like there's 10 or 12 ingredients in this pre-workout. It's like, I like it because it makes me tingle and it gives me lots of energy. It's like, well, probably the ones that you're getting the most benefit from that you're feeling is obviously the caffeine.
Yeah.
Right? The beta-alanine, which can act as a bit of a buffer for fatigue, and then the citrulline malate as well. So what I do is I just, based on the athlete's weight, will work out the grammages and have a pre-made formula backstage that I'll probably have them ingest with either a little bit of water or a little bit of Gatorade, depending on where they're at condition-wise and how the morning's gone, about 30 minutes before jumping on stage. And that's pretty much when we're going to start our big pump up.
Yep.
So those are the main three. Sodium. So we actually just use sodium tablets now, so we don't have to measure out salt specifically. So sodium tablets, where we might have 2 dosages across the morning. Let's assume it's an athlete who's on it roughly, let's just say 12 o'clock. You might have 1 dosage in the last meal and then 1 pretty close to getting on stage as well. A decent dosage of citrulline malate and beta-alanine as well.
Yep.
And that's pretty much all I use. And that's obviously separate to the nutrition system I employ. So there may be some carbohydrates that go along with that, but that's another conversation. So
I'm good with that. Anything to add there, Scotty?
No, so you could also add some form of nitrate. So if you didn't have those ingredients, you could get, like say a B12 or a beetroot juice. You can get nitrate shots. So nitrates are also good for ensuring that you can get a good pump for nitric oxide production. But in terms of everything else, you pretty much know. The only thing I would say is with the beta-alanine, if you haven't taken it before, just be careful because it does have some gastrointestinal uncomfortability for some people. It can send you to the bathroom, and also there's that paresthesia effect where you get those tingles. And a lot of people don't realize with beta-alanine, it's like creatine. You don't have to take it in an acute dose. So it's more the net amount that you're onboarding. So if you're wanting to have it, you could take it earlier in the morning and then you're still going to get those same benefits. Essentially, it just allows you to buffer those hydrogen ions. So if you're up on stage for ages and you're working really hard, it can just help to, prolong your ability essentially to do that. So sometimes having that earlier can be advantageous rather than sticking it in the shot, because sometimes, very common, a lot of people, it helps them go to the bathroom, but then sometimes that can be useful to have earlier in the day as well if you want to have a nice BM before you commence that relaxation phase, and that's pretty much it. But typically, I would never encourage someone to start using these things if you haven't run a trial peaking approach like the week before. Again, and I think you guys are the same, you typically tend to ditch your pre-workouts a few weeks out anyway and switch over to these anyway and just have a little bit of sugar-free cordial, because anyone that's had citrulline or beta-alanine knows that it tastes like vinegar. So that can kind of help on that front. And then the salt tablets, they're just the easiest thing. I remember when I first started using them, this is going a few years back now, people used to give me these weird looks backstage. What's that guy giving? Like giving these people these tablets, but they're just little chunky salt tablets. It just makes it so much easier rather than you sat there on a scale trying to just crank the shit out of a Himalayan salt shaker.
Yeah.
But that's it. You guys nailed it.
Yeah.
And all of those are like, obviously consult your coach, but you can buy those individually from like the pharmacy. They don't even need to go to a sub store. Most chemist warehouses have got them in their purest form. So
true. Yep.
Okay.
First time competitor. This is a male. First time getting lean, and he's finding it mentally tough. He's about 6 weeks out, and while his composition is improving, his weight isn't moving. He's like, I fully trust my coach and the plan we have in place, but the scales are causing me a lot of self-doubt. Any tips on managing these types of feelings 6 weeks out from competing for the first time? I don't want negative thoughts to take over and affect my final product. So 6 weeks out, weight's not moving, but composition is improving. He's having a little bit of self-doubt. You ever found that, Scotty, where you're finding towards the back end, weight's not shifting, but they're looking better?
If someone's like 95% peeled, yeah.
Yeah.
But if you're 6 weeks out, then like whether you, I don't want to add to this person's, and I'm not trying to be negative, but if your weight isn't going down and you're in a deficit, then you're not in a deficit.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not talking about if you weigh in once a week. If you're taking your average weight and your weight stayed the same for 2 or 3 weeks, and you think you're getting leaner, then unless you're chopping and changing your food all the time, which potentially could be happening, I don't know. But if you're eating the same things, then your weight should be trending down because you've got less adipose tissue on you, and your weight would see a response as well. When you've got someone like I've got 2 of my guys at the moment that are like ready to go right now, and their weight could be up a kilo, could be down a kilo the next day. It's all over the shop, but they've been within that range for around about 3 or 4 weeks. But when they were 6, 8 weeks out, and we still had around about 1.5, 2 kilos to go, weight was coming down. And if it wasn't, then I would have either added some more expenditure, or more likely than not, I would have taken from the nutrition side of things, because you're not getting the result you need to. So I would say if your weight's not moving, but you think your composition's getting better, unless you're enhanced, I don't necessarily know that would definitely be happening. From a physiological perspective, I don't see how that could be happening. So I think you might need to start eating less and moving more and create a deficit.
Yeah.
If you're being 100% adherent, because if you are doing those things, then you've hit a plateau. So you need to increase the deficit.
Yeah. The only other thing I'll add, and I totally agree with you, is, and especially only because he's asking this question, he's saying, I don't want to have negative thoughts, is you could literally be stressing yourself out and not reflecting what you should be reflecting on the scale, right? So I know I had 2 clients recently, and it would just so happen is one decided to take a mental health break from work for a week, and the other one quit their job. And in that week, these people lost like 1.5 kilos. And nothing had changed with their diet, their steps, nothing had changed. Just like literally stress just left their body, right? So sometimes you could be ticking all the boxes, doing everything right, but there's also the mental health box, right? And if you're not ticking that box, it could literally mask any kind of progress. It could be masking progress, but it can also be hindering progress because your system isn't operating as effective as it could be because it's just too stressed out, and it's going to be like, no, fuck you, I'm not doing this, right? So he could be masking some progress. He could be also hindering some progress by not addressing that with mental health, for sure. What do you think, MG?
I think it sounds like you maybe need to go a little bit harder.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I feel like, I mean, if I was in your position, I'll tell you where my positive would be. It's like, oh, cool. At least I'm here at 6 weeks out, and I feel like I've got time to go harder. I'd hate to be feeling the way you're feeling at 2 weeks out.
Yeah.
So you got 6 weeks, man. So don't get in your own head. You got heaps of time. Speak to your coach, make a change, and get to work.
Yeah.
Plenty of time.
Especially if you're willing to push harder.
That's it. Plenty of time. And equally, this guy could already be super peeled, and he's just got crazy dysmorphia, and he's maybe close to being ready. Who knows? But let's just assume that he's not. Use the 6 weeks. You've got time. You can definitely make changes, man. So, but you definitely want to see things tracking down. Definitely.
Yeah. Another one about show day. How to last a full day at a show. Coffee versus pre-workout.
No dose, man.
No dose.
No dose, and bring a mattress. If you bring a mattress, you can easily last all that shit.
Monsters. I would say, like, lasting a full day at the show, really, as we kind of said, is you should be chilling out the whole time. And
is this as a competitor or as a spectator?
I think it's a competitor. I'm assuming it is. Right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You should be chilling out the whole time.
Yeah, then maybe don't drink those.
Yeah, don't drink.
They got sugar alcohols in them. I thought it was a spectator.
Yeah.
He's like, is this someone coming to A and B? Because MG's organised.
I was literally about to say, I was going to lean into that, man. You took my my little segue. I was going to
Go for
say,
it.
well, I can recommend. There's a really, really good federation making waves at the moment. When I attended last year as a coach, it was just whenever I was feeling a little bit fatigued or parched, there was a gentleman that came over and just gave me one of these. And when I went to get out my wallet to pay him, he said,
On the house, baby.
"It's on A and B Vic's tab."
It's on A and B Vic. That's it.
Yeah.
So you're having
It's
Monster
little things.
Monster sponsor A and B Vic.
Yep, 2 years in a row, man. Monsters for all. Sugar-free monsters for all. Not just
Awesome.
monsters. Sugar-free monsters for all.
MG, how would you feel about maybe reaching out and getting a little podcast or maybe even a Scott Morrell Monster sponsorship just to help facilitate the journey?
Hey, I have a couple of very, very good contacts, man, that I think would be very interested.
Well, put it to them, man. I'm happy to have this as my intro each week if they want to just top me out with some Monster.
I reckon I can make that happen for you, man.
Sounds very, very lucrative. That sounds good.
Let's end on a couple of quick fires. See if we can go through some quick fire questions.
Let's go.
Okay. How do you guys feel about? No, sorry. You guys are now coaching people for free. How do you feel?
Someone,
Yeah.
You know what? It's a compliment. We're wrapped. If people are like taking our advice and it feels like we're helping them get through their preps, that's exactly why we started this whole thing. And for me, that's fulfilling. I don't look at it. We never started this for a monetary thing ever. We've said that before. We're all, doing very well within our own coaching businesses that we're not, looking for clients left, right, and center. We started this to help make the industry and the sport better. And if we're doing that, that's the most fulfilling thing. So I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah. And if you are being coached, make sure you always check with your coach what we're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was the new venture you were mentioning a few weeks ago?
Well, people are attentive.
They're pretty good.
You want to say anything, or
I don't think we say anything, but it's education based, right?
Yeah, but it's more than that. It's because that just sounds like a seminar, and it's not that.
Yeah, it's not a seminar. No.
It's got so many more things to it.
It's an experience.
It's all access.
Can we say that we're filming something for it tomorrow? Can we say that? Yeah. Well, we have. I just did.
Well, but we're filming it for our clients first.
Yeah,
because it's going to have a lot of interest, and we want.
So we're going to offer it to our own teams.
Anyway.
Yes,
and is that getting released tomorrow?
Depends how it goes. Yeah.
Man, I reckon I can do these things in one take.
Yeah.
But it just needs that
enough practice
to editing love.
Yeah.
So, all right, what about, can we tell people when do they think they'll hear about it?
Oh, within a month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there'll be an opportunity post.
Our athletes will hear about it. First. They will get first access.
Yeah.
And then we'll open it up to everyone else.
Yeah. If there's spots.
If there's spots left.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty big.
Okay, talking about ventures, what's the go with MG's clothing brand? More deets, please.
Whoa. Yes, Peak Precision Apparel. Been working on it for 2 years with my business partners, me, myself, Ryan, who you boys are obviously friends with as well. My mate Josh, who's graphic designer. Ryan's the tech whiz. Me and I are obviously the fitness people. Came up with it in COVID, and we thought we'd launch it in 6 months. It's been 2 years. Yeah, it launches on this Saturday. So some pretty exciting stuff happening, and hopefully over the next 6 months, I can provide some opportunities to some people within the industry to be part of it. I'm all about just getting people involved. So yeah, really excited about it. It's been a long time coming. Can't wait for the launch on Saturday. If you're listening, buy something, and then there'll be some ambassador and athlete programs coming up in the near future too. So
what are the sizing charts, bro?
Yeah, they're all on there. So everything's pretty true to fit, except for the men's tee is very fitted. The men's tee and the men's shorts are very fitted. Everything else is as normal.
And for the double XL?
In a couple of things, yes.
Hoodies?
Yeah, the hoodies are awesome, man. The hoodies will be a perfect fit. They're very, very warm. I might be able to get a couple of TMG hoodies on the side.
Yeah, that'd be good, because we've had some people ask about merch, Prep Coach merch. So if we can
we have two merches? Can we have the one Scotty said? Can we have Scotty's one, which is where salt goes, water follows?
So
And
anyone else wanna follow us?
And then can we have another one that says if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a duck?
Yeah.
Quack, quack.
There's got to be some merch with some slogans on it for
We've
sure.
got to have some TMG slogans.
Yeah. Who do you guys use for inspiration? Now, MG, you have a story about this.
Man, so Scotty? I don't know if you saw. You reshared it, so you saw it. But I don't know if you took the context. So last week I was RDLing. I think you saw me. I was at my gym. I was RDLing. It was like Sunday. And obviously it wasn't very safe because I was turning around with 3 plates aside to the camera. But I was doing David Goggins, right? So I'm doing RDLs, and I'm like, "You don't know me, son." I'll do another rep, and then I'm like, "Who's going to carry the boats and the logs?" Anyway, I tagged him in it. And he wrote back to me, man. And this is the most gangster reply. This is why I love him. David Goggins is my answer to this question. But this is what he wrote back. I tagged him in my video RDLing, and he just wrote back, "Stay hard, motherfucker."
That's so good.
And that was it. And I'm like, you know what, bro? That's all. That is a dream interaction. I didn't want anything else from him. Just like that. I was like, man, I sent it to Shimboli straight away. I'm like, bro, he
The
wrote
best.
back.
I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Goggins got me through a lot of my prep, a lot of my training.
Sure.
Yeah,
For sure. And I know he's intense, and I know he's like, I'm not saying you have to go out there and run for 39 hours straight, but it just shows like when you feel like you're pushing, there is a little bit more you can find. You can dig a little bit deeper. And I just use him for that. I think he's just good in that sense.
Yeah, like during prep, if you go into YouTube and you type in David Goggins, stay hard, there's part 1, 2, and 3. They go for 30 minutes each, and it's just him saying motivational stuff. I literally listen to that every single time I train.
Yeah, I use that as my music. I actually haven't listened to music when I'm training for ages, man. I use that. I use podcasts, and it helps me get through, man. Like,
yeah. What about you, Scotty? Who do you use for inspiration? Anyone?
Michael Trimboli, I think he said last year.
Yeah, watching you do those incline presses, man.
I know.
Tell you what,
That
that lockout is actually the screensaver on my laptop now.
Come on, Scotty.
I'm just saying, man. I couldn't help but notice that the t-shirt's getting tighter and tighter at the top.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Even my wife, bro. I said the other day, my wife said, "Michael's gotten a lot bigger in his upper body." I said, "Well, he'd be really pleased to hear that."
Thanks,
Oh,
Jen.
please, you know
And she doesn't blow smoke either. It's a hard get to get one of those. So, man, I would take it and run with it.
No, thanks, Jen. I appreciate that.
She's a legend.
All right, we got through a fair bit. I'm counting. We got through 11 questions, which is not bad. But there's
How many were there?
Next week. We'll have to do some more next week.
Oh yeah, before I forget, we've got to try and tee up a different time because I've got to go to Noosa for that.
You're
Isaac.
away next week.
What's that? Sorry.
You're away next week.
Yeah, I got to go to Queensland for my Isaac recred. So it's annoying.
We're gonna have our non-first week without a business meeting.
Yeah. Well, hey, unless you boys want to just come up for that. Yeah, I've got an apartment there. You boys can crash.
Otherwise, the new T-shirt's gonna say "Where Scott goes, MG and MT follow."
Follows.
Yeah. No, that's good. We'll just do it, man. We'll just do it by Zoom. There we go.
Of course.
You guys can still come into my gym. Just literally just sit where I am here now, and I'll just
Actually, that'll be hilarious.
That would be hilarious.
Funny.
That would be hilarious.
Yeah.
All right, fellas.
All right, boys. Good chat. Well done.
Happy
Tomorrow,
Easter to
yeah?
everyone.
Happy Easter, guys. Thanks
Happy
to all the
Easter, everyone.
listeners.
And
We're catching up tomorrow, though. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Only if you'll have us.
Yeah, bro.
Thanks, man.
All right. Take care, everyone.
See you,
We'll
boys.
Next week.
See you guys.
Ciao, ciao.